A lonely boy hears a strange noise outside his house one night. He steps into the darkness, expecting to find an animal, but instead comes face to face with a frightened creature from another world. Moments later, bicycles fly across the moon. Children outwit scientists, and an alien points one glowing finger toward the sky before whispering one of the most famous lines in cinema history. E.T. the Extra-Terrestrial, released in 1982 and directed by Steven Spielberg, looks like a gentle family adventure, but behind its warmth lies a production filled with extraordinary innovations, emotional performances, and unlikely decisions that transformed it into one of the biggest films ever made. Spielberg drew deeply from his own childhood loneliness after his parents' divorce, turning personal memories into a universal story about friendship, loss, and hope. The result became the highest-grossing film in history, won 4 Academy Awards, and inspired generations of filmmakers. Yet many of its greatest moments happened because of accidents, improvisation, and creative risks that nearly never reached the screen. 20 facts counting down. Fact 20. Steven Spielberg turned childhood loneliness into a timeless science fiction fairy tale. Long before audiences met E.T., Steven Spielberg was searching for a story about isolation. After his parents divorced, he often imagined having an imaginary companion who could understand him when nobody else seemed to. Those feelings stayed with him for years. When developing E.T., he transformed those memories into Elliott, a quiet boy who struggles to connect with his family after his father leaves home. The film makes that loneliness visible almost immediately. Elliott stands alone in the backyard shed, cautiously approaching the frightened alien hiding among scattered tools and toys. Their first meeting contains almost no dialogue. Instead, Spielberg lets facial expressions, gentle movements, and John Williams's emotional music tell the story. That simple encounter becomes the emotional heart of the entire film. Rather than creating another invasion story, Spielberg made an alien who is just as frightened as the child who finds him. It was a bold reversal of science fiction conventions. Instead of fear, the film offered compassion. That personal approach gave E.T. an emotional honesty audiences instantly recognized, helping transform a fantasy about visitors from another planet into one of the most human stories ever filmed. Fact 19. The unforgettable alien almost looked completely different. Designing E.T. proved remarkably difficult. Spielberg wanted audiences to fall in love with a creature unlike anything they had seen before. Italian special effects artist Carlo Rambaldi received the challenge of creating a face that appeared both ancient and childlike. He reportedly studied photographs of babies, elderly people, and even the poet Carl Sandburg to find the right balance of innocence and wisdom. The finished animatronic puppet stood just over 3 feet tall and contained dozens of moving mechanical parts, controlling the eyes, eyebrows, neck, and expressive mouth. During the famous closet scene, E.T. hides among stuffed animals while Elliott searches the room. His wide eyes peek nervously between toys before revealing himself. That moment depended entirely on subtle facial movements rather than dialogue. Rambaldi's extraordinary craftsmanship gave the puppet an emotional range rarely seen in practical effects at the time. It's a genuine soul. Looking into those enormous glassy eyes, millions of viewers did exactly that. Fact 18. Most child performances were captured with almost no rehearsal. Steven Spielberg believed children behave naturally only when they are genuinely experiencing events for the first time. Instead of endlessly rehearsing scenes, he often explained situations moments before filming. Henry Thomas, Drew Barrymore, and Robert McNaughton frequently reacted to surprises that were deliberately kept secret until cameras rolled. One memorable example occurs when Elliott first introduces E.T. to his brother and little sister. Gertie cautiously approaches before bursting into delighted laughter at the strange visitor standing in the bedroom. Spielberg encouraged improvisation throughout the sequence, allowing the children to interrupt one another and respond naturally. Rather than demanding perfect line readings, he focused on authentic emotion. The result feels less like scripted dialogue and more like siblings sharing an unbelievable secret. This approach gave the film its remarkable sense of realism. Even surrounded by spaceships, government agents, and extraordinary special effects, the family interactions remain believable because they rarely feel performed. They simply feel lived. Fact 17. Henry Thomas won the lead role with an astonishing audition. Hundreds of young actors auditioned for Elliott before Spielberg met 10-year-old Henry Thomas. During his screen test, casting directors asked him to imagine government scientists had taken away his beloved pet forever. Instead of pretending, Thomas became completely overwhelmed with emotion. Tears streamed down his face as he pleaded for the imaginary animal's return. The room reportedly fell silent. Spielberg immediately recognized the performance as something extraordinary and declared, "You're the kid." That emotional honesty became essential during filming. One of the strongest examples appears near the end of the movie, when Elliott desperately begs E.T. not to leave aboard the returning spaceship. The heartbreak feels completely genuine because Thomas never treated the role as simple fantasy. He approached it as a story about losing his closest friend. Spielberg later praised the young actor for carrying the emotional weight of an enormously ambitious production. Without that remarkable audition, one of cinema's most beloved child performances might never have happened. Fact 16. The flying bicycle became one of cinema's most iconic images. Few movie scenes are recognized more quickly than a bicycle soaring across the face of the full moon. Yet creating that magical image required careful planning rather than expensive digital technology. The bicycles were suspended using elaborate rigs, while miniature photography and optical compositing combined separate pieces into one seamless shot. During the chase, Elliott, Michael and their friends race through suburban streets as government vehicles close behind. Suddenly, the bicycles lift effortlessly into the air, gliding silently above trees before crossing the giant, glowing moon. The moment lasts only seconds, but it instantly became the defining image of E.T. It captured the wonder Spielberg wanted audiences to feel throughout the film. The silhouette proved so memorable that it later became the official logo of Spielberg's production company, Amblin Entertainment. More than 40 years later, that single visual still symbolizes movie magic itself, reminding viewers that sometimes the most unforgettable special effect is also the simplest idea. Drew Barrymore convinced everyone she truly believed aliens were real. When production began, Drew Barrymore was only 7 years old, yet she quickly became one of the film's biggest surprises. Spielberg discovered that she possessed an extraordinary imagination. During conversations on set, Barrymore insisted she had an invisible band that played music in her bedroom every night. Rather than correcting her, Spielberg encouraged her creativity because it perfectly matched the innocence of Gertie. That childlike belief shines during the scenes where Gertie dresses E.T. in a blonde wig, pearls and a floppy hat, happily introducing the alien as if he were simply another member of the family. Barrymore's laughter feels completely genuine because much of it was. Spielberg often let the cameras continue rolling after the scripted dialogue ended, capturing spontaneous reactions that made the relationship feel authentic. Her performance became one of the film's emotional anchors, proving that sincerity could be just as powerful as spectacle. Years later, Spielberg said directing Barrymore felt less like instructing an actress and more like following an endlessly imaginative child who happened to be perfect for the role. Fact 14. John Williams rewrote the ending with one unforgettable piece of music. The emotional finale almost sounded completely different. After Spielberg assembled the finished sequence, legendary composer John Williams wrote several musical versions for the farewell between Elliott and E.T. During recording, the timing of the orchestra didn't perfectly match Spielberg's edit. Instead of asking Williams to change the score, Spielberg made an unusual decision. He re-edited the film around the music. As E.T. slowly walks toward the glowing spaceship, embraces Elliott, and gently touches his forehead while saying, "I'll be right here," the orchestra rises with remarkable precision. Every emotional beat seems to breathe with the music, rather than fight against it. Williams's sweeping composition transforms a simple goodbye into one of cinema's greatest farewells. The score earned Williams an Academy Award, and remains one of the defining soundtracks of his career. Spielberg later admitted he trusted the music so completely that he preferred changing the picture instead of altering a single note. Fact 13. The government agents remain mysterious for most of the movie. Spielberg deliberately avoided showing the adults clearly during the first half of the story. Government investigators searching for the alien are usually filmed from the waist down, with jangling keys hanging from their belts becoming their most recognizable feature. Elliott and his friends see them exactly as children often see adults, not as individuals, but as intimidating authority figures. One striking sequence shows scientists slowly advancing through the forest with flashlights while E.T. hides silently among the trees. Their faces remain largely unseen, making them feel almost as alien as the creature they are hunting. Only later, when Elliott's house becomes a sealed medical facility filled with white plastic tunnels and protective suits, do the adults emerge as fully developed characters. The change reflects Elliott's growing understanding that not every adult intends harm. By telling the story almost entirely from a child's perspective, Spielberg turned ordinary scientists into mysterious giants and made viewers experience every frightening moment through Elliott's eyes. Fact 12. Industrial light and magic created invisible movie magic everywhere. Although E.T. is remembered for its lovable alien, many of its greatest effects are almost impossible to notice. George Lucas's visual effects company, Industrial Light and Magic, combined miniatures, optical photography, matte paintings, and carefully hidden wires to create scenes that still look remarkably convincing decades later. The spaceship landing in the forest glows through real fog and towering trees. The bicycles appear to float naturally over suburban neighborhoods. Even E.T.'s glowing heart and fingertip required delicate lighting effects synchronized with the puppet's movements. One memorable shot shows the spaceship descending silently into a clearing while colorful mist drifts between the trees. Nearly every element of that image required painstaking practical craftsmanship. Because the effects supported the story instead of dominating it, audiences rarely noticed the technical achievement behind them. Quietly entered an ordinary American neighborhood, and ILM's subtle work made that impossible fantasy feel strangely believable. Fact 11. The film became the biggest box office phenomenon of its generation. Released on June 11, 1982, E.T. exceeded even Universal Pictures' highest expectations. Positive word of mouth spread almost immediately as families returned to theaters again and again. Long lines formed outside cinemas throughout the summer, and the film remained a cultural event for months rather than weeks. One unforgettable sequence, the bicycles soaring into the night sky as police cars race below, became instantly recognizable in advertisements, magazine covers, and television reports celebrating the film's success. By the end of its original release, E.T. had overtaken Star Wars to become the highest-grossing movie ever made, earning hundreds of millions of dollars worldwide. It received 9 Academy Award nominations and won 4 Oscars, including awards for visual effects, sound editing, and John Williams' magnificent score. More importantly, it proved that deeply emotional storytelling could achieve blockbuster success without sacrificing heart. Spielberg had created not simply another hit movie, but a worldwide phenomenon that defined an entire generation of cinema. Fact 10. The Halloween sequence became an ingenious disguise for an impossible friendship. One of the film's cleverest scenes takes place on Halloween night, when Elliott realizes the perfect way to hide E.T. is in plain sight. Wrapped beneath a white ghost costume, the little alien joins crowds of costumed children walking through the neighborhood without attracting the slightest suspicion. The disguise allows Spielberg to stage one of the film's most magical moments. E.T. suddenly notices a child wearing a Yoda costume and excitedly waddles toward him, stretching out his glowing finger as if recognizing an old friend from another galaxy. The playful reference delighted audiences, especially because both films were distributed by Universal and Lucasfilm collaborators remained close friends. The Halloween setting also transforms the suburban streets into a dreamlike landscape where anything seems possible. For one evening, monsters, ghosts, superheroes, and an actual extraterrestrial all walk side by central idea that wonder often hides behind ordinary moments. Fact 9. The emotional connection between Elliott and E.T. shaped every major scene. Rather than making E.T. a visitor who simply befriends Elliott, screenwriter Melissa Matheson introduced a deeper idea. Soon after their first meeting, the boy and the alien begin sharing an emotional and physical bond. When E.T. secretly drinks beer at home, Elliott becomes unexpectedly dizzy during school. As E.T. watches an old romance on television and kisses the air, Elliott suddenly kisses a classmate during biology lessons, unable to explain why. The connection grows stronger as the story progresses. During the heartbreaking hospital scenes, both become desperately ill at the same time, suggesting they are slowly dying together. Spielberg visualizes this invisible relationship through mirrored expressions, synchronized movements, and matching emotional reactions rather than lengthy explanations. It turns a simple friendship into something almost mystical. By the time Elliott says goodbye, audiences understand he is not only losing a friend, he is losing a part of himself. Fact 8. Melissa Matheson wrote the screenplay with extraordinary speed and heart. The screenplay came from writer Melissa Matheson, who was visiting Harrison Ford during the production of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Spielberg shared his idea about a lonely boy and an abandoned alien, and Matheson immediately recognized its emotional potential. Inspired by their conversations, she completed the script in only a few months. Her writing avoided complicated science fiction mythology in favor of simple human relationships. One beautiful example occurs when Elliott quietly introduces E.T. to his bedroom, offering candy, toys, and comic books instead of asking endless questions about space. The exchange feels exactly like two children learning to trust each other. Matheson's dialogue remains remarkably restrained throughout the film, allowing silence, expressions, and visual storytelling to carry the emotional weight. Her screenplay earned an Academy Award nomination and became one of the defining family adventures of the 20th century, proving that the strongest science fiction often begins with ordinary human emotions. Fact 7. Real puppeteers brought astonishing life to the unforgettable alien. E.T. appears so alive because dozens of performers worked together behind the scenes. While the sophisticated animatronic puppet handled facial expressions and close-ups, skilled puppeteers controlled countless movements by hand. For walking scenes, performers of small stature wore specially constructed costumes, giving the alien a convincing physical presence. Caprice Roth, Tamara Detrow, and Pat Bailon all contributed to bringing E.T. to life in different sequences. Inside the forest, E.T. cautiously waddles through fallen leaves while turning his head with nervous curiosity. Later, he shuffles through Elliott's kitchen, searching cupboards for food before discovering Reese's pieces scattered across the floor. Every movement required careful coordination between mechanics, performers, and camera operators. Spielberg insisted the crew treat the puppet almost like another actor. On set, many of the younger cast members responded to E.T. as though the creature were genuinely alive, helping create performances filled with authentic affection rather than forced imagination. Fact 6. The heartbreaking farewell left cast and crew in tears. Filming the ending proved just as emotional as watching it. By the time production reached the farewell scenes, the young actors had spent months working alongside the puppet and the performers who controlled it. Spielberg filmed much of the sequence in story order, allowing the relationships between the children and E.T. to grow naturally before saying goodbye. As the spaceship descends into the misty forest clearing, Elliott embraces his closest friend one final time. E.T.'s glowing fingertip gently touches the boy's forehead before the unforgettable promise, "I'll be right here." Even experienced crew members reportedly became emotional behind the cameras. Spielberg encouraged everyone to focus on genuine feelings rather than technical perfection. The result remains one of the most moving endings in popular cinema. Instead of celebrating a spectacular victory over villains, the climax quietly honors friendship, sacrifice, and the painful reality that even the most extraordinary relationships cannot last forever. Fact 5. The film inspired generations of filmmakers and storytellers worldwide. It inspired countless directors who grew up Spielberg's series, films and television series about children confronting extraordinary mysteries. Groups of young friends riding bicycles, mysterious government laboratories hidden behind ordinary streets, and emotional stories told from a child's perspective all echo ideas popularized by E.T. Decades later, productions such as Stranger Things, Spielberg's influence. The image of children racing through the night on bicycles became one of the defining visual motifs of modern popular culture. More importantly, E.T. reminded filmmakers that audiences connect most strongly with believable characters. Spectacular effects might attract attention, but sincere emotion creates lasting memories. Spielberg's little alien continued reaching new generations because his story always placed the heart before the spectacle. Fact 4. A controversial special edition changed scenes Spielberg later regretted. Computer-generated imagery enhanced facial expressions and walking shots, while one famous sequence replaced government aid rolls with handheld radios. Spielberg hoped the alterations would make the story gentler for modern families. However, many longtime fans preferred the original theatrical version, arguing that the changes softened important dramatic moments and replaced practical charm with unnecessary digital effects. Years later, Spielberg publicly admitted he regretted revising the film. He encouraged viewers to regard the 1982 release as the definitive version, explaining that classic movies should reflect the period in which they were created. His honesty became an important lesson for filmmakers considering similar revisions. Sometimes a beloved film achieves its magic precisely because it remains untouched by later technology. Fact 3. Reese's Pieces became one of Hollywood's greatest marketing success stories. One of cinema's most famous product placements happened almost by accident. Spielberg originally hoped Elliott would lure E.T. using M&Ms, but the manufacturer declined the opportunity. That decision opened the door for Hershey to supply Reese's Pieces instead. Throughout the movie, Elliott carefully scatters the colorful candy through the forest, creating a glowing trail that leads the frightened alien towards safety. The simple image became instantly memorable. After the film's release, sales of Reese's Pieces reportedly surged dramatically as children wanted the same candy that had befriended E.T. The partnership transformed a relatively modest confection into a worldwide sensation and demonstrated the enormous marketing power of blockbuster cinema. It remains one of the classic examples of a company benefiting from saying yes when another had already walked away. Fact 2.